Hi Niels.
Hi Martin.
We're going to be talking about org physics, which is mainly, or your main topic of Organized for Complexity. I would say, like the umbrella on top. So what is it?
Organizational physics is a concept that an insight. It's one insight, that is that organizations have three structures actually. Most of us, in most organizations, we tend to believe that organizations have one structure, which is the shown in the org chart, with bosses at the top and employees at the bottom, and you have these departmental boxes, and there are lines between the boxes that show who has more power and who is disempowered. So traditionally and historically thinking, we have come to believe that organizations are driven from the top through these structures, the line structure as we call it. And ultimately this is an instrument that has been developed 100 years ago by Frederick Taylor and his peers and successors. So it's very common to see organizations as machine-like driven, steered organizations from the top down. And we call this model, the basic underlying philosophy, we call it command control. Command from the top, control from the top. Information flows up, very important for the social media wiki theme we are discussing. So information is supposed to flow up, decision is supposed to be made at the top, and decisions flow down to be executed at the bottom.
Most efficiently crafted, as we know.
Exactly, and supposedly this is the driver. This structure, the line structure, the pyramid structure of organizations is supposedly efficient, and it is efficient actually. If the environment is complicated and value creation is standardizable, repetitive, this works efficiently. You make one decision at the top, and you're executed 1 million or 10 million or 100 million times at the bottom. Problem is that complexity has returned into organizations and value creation, and we cannot, for every surprise that we encounter, we cannot get the information up to the top decision makers and give a command down. That has become too slow, too expensive, too slow, too little agile. There's too little agility in this kind of command and control model. So this structure is becoming highly problematic. The good thing is there are two more structures in every company.
Hold on. If you're watching this, it's going to be longer than the usual YouTube videos.
Yes, and, more than 40 seconds.
Yeah, more than
I think we are over time already.
He's kind of, you could think he's mixing up words, but there's a very big distinction, for example, in what you called complexity and complicated.
Yes.
And those are like at least similar words. And if you go out in the supermarket, people may not be able to distinguish.
In our private lives, we say something like, "Honey, you are so complicated," and that is scientifically speaking, that's just wrong. Because honey, the loved ones, they are always complex. Yeah. Human beings are complex. Teams are complex. The weather is a complex system. Or the climate is a complex system.
As you just introduced that. As normal,
given, yes.
Could you spin some sentences on the difference between complicated and complex?
I think it's very basic, but as you said, as you well said, in our private lives we do not distinguish well between the complicated and the complex, between these two terms. Complicated is anything that you can steer from the outside, that you can control from the outside, something that is repetitive, standardizable, where you can do prognosis and forecast what will happen. For example, a watch. My watch here, it is a complicated system. It is exact, precise, controllable, which is wonderful. Planes, thanks God, planes are also controllable, steerable, etc. Now, if I'm in a plane, sometimes surprises happen, and they usually come from weather conditions, for example. And that is where complexity kicks in. The complicated is neither good or bad. It is a domain or a condition of systems, but there are other systems that are inherently complex, like the weather or climate, human beings, teams, organizations. They also have complexity, and where you encounter complexity, you encounter surprise. Now, surprise means that you cannot really predict. Complex systems are not exact or steerable. And this takes us back to the organizational topic. Organizations today have to deal with complexity. That's a matter of fact. It is not even disputable. It is a historical fact. We are aware now that markets are dynamic and dense, that the markets are inherently complex.
We were in contact with a big company called Monsanto in the US recently. They actually have to deal with the weather. Most people probably more often have to deal with people, with human beings. And that's inherently complex. It's almost never complicated.
And also, of course, competitors create complexity for us. They create surprises for us. If a competitor in India has an idea today, maybe tomorrow this will affect me. So the surprise can come from competitors, from climate. It can come from people within the organizations, and there are many complexity creating factors.
In the beginning of this video, you've been talking about the hierarchical structure of an org chart.
Yes.
And in my opinion, the new thing that you're introducing, that you're proposing, is that you shouldn't work with complicated tools on complex problems. Like, don't treat humans as if they were zeros and ones. What you do, for example, with bonuses or something. Can you? So let's assume, I know that this is not common sense yet, but let's assume that was common sense. What am I doing? What's the tool that I use for this complex, not complicated situations? What's the org physics tool there?
Yes, one of the examples that I like to give is that, for example, the future is inherently a complex thing. There will be surprise. You cannot predict the future. Everybody knows that. In organizations, nevertheless, we try to control and predict the future. There are many concepts. Budgets, plans, strategic planning, target setting. Goals and incentive systems. They are all built, or even forecasting. We do all kinds of stuff to control the future. That is inherently nonsensical. It's wasteful. It's dangerous for company. If you encounter surprise and you follow the plan, that's implicitly dangerous. So we have to stop using complicated tools to solve complex problems. We have to stop doing that.
You're still not answering the question. I understand.
How?
How
we leave it to the next video, maybe.
What am I doing? I want to hear about the pitch and.
Yes. Well, the first thing is we have to get rid of the assumption that the org chart works, that command and control works. It cannot work because org charts, steering from the top down, budgeting, etc. Those are instruments, tools that are perfect for complicated problems, but organizations are alive, complex, etc. So we have to face the fact that there are two more structures. Organizational physics teaches us that the org chart is good to create compliance, to remain within the law, to solve the legal problems that organizations have. But they are a crappy way to solve real market problems, to organize the work. The good thing is, every organization has two other structures than the org chart, the formal structure. And one important kind of structure is informal structure, which is the informal network between people, the socializing within organizations. I like you, you like me, so we have a social connection within a company, and who likes who dislikes whom, all that makes up informal or social structure. One way to look at this is that traditionally we think that we have to organize information. We have to send organization through the organization. We have to send information through the organization through these silo channels, departments, and so on. And that is very slow, time-consuming. It's formal. We try to control the information. It's not really effective today. Social structure or informal structure is much faster. If somebody overhears a news somewhere and says, "Oh, now I have to tell this to my friend, we have to drink a coffee or we have to smoke a cigarette and talk about it." Information within social structures travels much, much faster, which is also why internal wikis or intranets are so useful, because you can have information traveling at much higher speed. So social structure it is neither good nor bad. It can be both. It can have both kinds of effects. I mean, we can do horrible political stuff through informal structures, or we can create solidarity through informal structures.
And you can't get rid of it, right? You can't get rid of the hierarchy. You can't get rid of the informal structure.
You can neither control it nor eliminate it. A social structure it's always there. When people come into a room, there is social structure. Period. Like it or not. And only the unwise manager believes that social structure is something alien or unimportant or something that is not meant to be dealt with professionally. It's very important to deal with it professionally, to influence social structure consciously and to be aware that it is fast, it is effective, but it is also inherently complex and uncontrollable.
Yeah, and there's actually pages like in the book. It's 44 and 45 that we're talking about.
Yes.
Like only two pages.
Yes.
Probably already.
In the book, we thought a lot about how to make people more aware of this kind of structure and difference, and one way is to put illustrations into the book,
But
to illustrate it and show that this is how it works.
You're also talking about a value creation structure.
This is the third structure. The first is the org chart-like structure, formal structure. The second is informal structure. And now, if you look at both those structures, formal org chart, top-down pyramid, and informal structure, the socializing within social groups, you might ask yourself, where does the real work happen? It doesn't happen in neither of those structures, of those two structures. Work actually happens in a totally different structure, which we call value creation structure. Performance can only be created in value creation structure, and value creation structure follows a totally different principle, which is inside out. Value creation in any organization, everywhere in the world, in any time of history, value creation has one way to travel, from the inside out. From organizational center to organizational periphery to the market. That's what value creation does. Mm-hmm. And organizations live by exchanging this value creation for money. Mm-hmm. Implicitly, every organization, profit or not profit, works this way. And value creation structure has another unique feature, which is value creation doesn't happen within individual people or positions. It happens in the space between people, within teams. Mm-hmm. So value creation structure is based upon the principle that value creation travels from one team to another team to the customer or market. Value creation is not individual. It happens in the space between people.
So this is a misconception if I think that value creation is done in the org chart, that the decision is done up.
You can make a decision and then a department will execute. That is just complete nonsense.
Okay.
Because usually the org chart is what it does is dividing functions. So we believe that sales manager and sales manager and sales manager are the department, and marketer and marketer and marketer, accountant, they are departments.
So that's the matrix where.
Yes. That's the idea of how it works. It's like in the movie The Matrix. Yeah, it's a crazy idea of how a work might work. It doesn't work like this.
I've been studying economics, and then you're learning about organizations that have a matrix structure.
Yes.
Where those departments are kind of they have a horizontal organization for products, for projects, for stuff where people are linked, because they have understood that the hierarchy is not good to mimic the value creation process.
Yes.
And so you say that this page and so the center, the periphery, and the market is a better model. Can you give a good example where this already works, maybe, like in a company that you know of, that people in the audience may know?
I think it's. I would say this I would try to say this in more radical terms. Mm-hmm. Value creation always happens in functionally integrated team constellations. Now the problem is that most organizations don't have a clue what these structures, these functionally integrated structures look like, how they work. A good example is we have a large company like a German railway company, and they have departments. Now for every real complex problem, they have to create another substructure. Mm-hmm. They have the departments, but the departments would tell them, well, we cannot solve this problem on our own. We have to talk to another company. We have to create an interface between 2 departments or 3 departments or 7, or we have to create a task force or a project. this is the moment where value creation appears in most conventional companies.
And this, coming to my topic on software and how, this is where all the meetings start, right? Like, oh, we need to have a meeting with this and this and this and this department. And we do know that those 5 departments that we want to have on the table, 3 are not necessary right now, but they need to hear what we're thinking of because they may have objections. And so people are sitting at a table very bored because only 2 departments are doing something together, but they have to be there just because their whole project is so important. And so those meetings kind of solve this.
No, traditional meetings cannot solve complex problems, I think, because ultimately what we observe in larger organizations and these bigger meetings is that you have the wrong people in the room to really solve the problem. Usually, when you have an important problem in a company, you will ask the department heads to get together. But they are not the experts for the problem. They implicitly cannot work together because they have to steer the work and so on. So we have the wrong people in the room and for the wrong reasons. For example, we invite people from different departments because we say, this is important, every department has to be part of this. That is not an effective way of solving complex problems. We should always ask ourselves who has mastery in this. Who's the carrier of mastery for a particular problem? Whom do we need to solve the problem, and not who's the department head who should be aware, of the problem so that they can steer that stuff. It's command and control mode of running meetings. It is obviously totally unhealthy and ineffective.
So
we have come used to this departmental structure, to have department heads talking to each other without any clue of the real ideas.
If you're watching this, I am pretty confident that you already know that something is flawed in the organization that you're in right now. If you want to know more about this, maybe look at this book from Niels and find out more about his three
structures of organizations.
Or contact us and ask questions.
Yes.
We're happy about that. Thanks.